Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. I'm your host, Bethany Gifford, and after more than a decade managing surgeons, teams, and practices in dermatology and plastics, I now work with leaders across aesthetics, health, and wellness to uncover growth opportunities and help practices scale smarter, not harder. Today's episode is a real special one. Our guest came from a bold leap of corporate finance to building one of North Atlanta's most respected med spas. She's not only grown her practice into an award-winning brand, but she's also elevating the entire industry with a new accredited training academy for injectors. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by New Era Intel. At New Era Intel, we help medical spas, dermatology clinics, and plastic surgery practices who are struggling with inconsistent patient retention, underutilized CRM systems, and manual systems that hold back your clinic's growth potential so they can finally increase quality repeat bookings, streamline operations with AI automation, and grow predictable monthly revenue with the right systems and strategy. They're able to create a premium, seamless patient experience while freeing up their team to focus on what they do best. If you would like to take your business to the next level, head over to neweraintel.com to get started.
I am thrilled to welcome Tracy Olson, the owner of Youthtopia Med Spa and the founder of Aesthetic Injector Academy. With over 13 years of experience in aesthetics, Tracy has built a trusted destination for clients in Alpharetta, Georgia. She's been doing this all while pioneering an education for medical professionals entering injection space. And her passion for raising industry standards and empowering injectors has set her apart as both a leader and an innovator in this field. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's get started with your journey. What inspired you to kind of shift from corporate finance into the aesthetic world?
Well, that's a great question because it is quite a different leap. I think if anybody listening or has been in corporate finance, you could see the desire to kind of step away from it. It was quite a grind. And I was at the time receiving my medical spa treatments, and the provider that I was going to is a very well-known provider in the Atlanta market, well, really nationally. He actually wanted to open a fourth location and asked me to partner with him. And I started studying the market as anybody would before making a career change. And the more I learned about the med spa industry and this aesthetic medicine industry, I knew it was, well, what I thought would be recession proof and growing. And it's a growing opportunity. So 13 years ago, I made that move and I was partnering with him. That kind of fell through for all good reasons. But once I had one foot out the door, I wanted to stay out the door, and I stepped fully into owning a med spa. And I purchased one that was in the North Atlanta area um, that had been open for maybe 7 years when I bought it. So I bought a med spa.
That's awesome. I mean, that was back in 2013.
Yes.
What were some of the toughest challenges you were facing kind of in those early years back then?
Well, I think with anybody stepping into a new role, a new position, the learning curve is out there. I do think 13 years ago there wasn't as much information. They didn't have benchmark studies, you didn't have heat maps. Um, Botox was really kind of a taboo word, so there wasn't a lot of leads on, you know, how do you do a Google ad on Botox, or how do you market and advertise Botox or dermal fillers or neuromodulators on Meta. There was no there was no way to follow a path of success. It was a lot of trial and error. Certainly now, if someone were to open a med spa next month, there's a lot of groundwork for them, and they would have a easier path of finding out what works from marketing and advertising and what doesn't. So that was a challenge. And then, of course, learning all the different modalities and the aesthetic side with lasers and capital equipment.
Absolutely. Well, I know, the early years of med spas were doing really well, but post-COVID, we saw a huge spike in the demand.
Mm,
How has that boom kind of evolved for you? Because I know a lot of the trends that are coming in seasonally,
mhm,
body treatments, wellness services, things like that.
mhm. Yes, COVID was great for our industry. And just by nature of not being able to travel, not being, people still want to spend money on themselves. I think there was a big trend on can't go to the beach, can't take my trip to Europe, I can't go anywhere. And then a lot of Zoom camera meetings, such as these, cause people to invest in themselves. So I do think the manufacturers thought, oh, this is going to continue because it was a really booming industry and a lot of people kind of got into medical aesthetics. But since 2 years post COVID, it's kind of gone back to a normal seasonality. And I hate to say seasonality because, you strive to be successful in all your KPIs and make sure that you're busy year round, but there is a seasonality. In my particular industry, it's cash based, and those people with the money to spend typically travel. So if they're gone all summer, then come fall and the kids are back in school, there's definitely a difference between summer and fall. So there is some seasonality to it. Um, but the goal is to keep it busy year round.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know with a lot of the health and wellness coming into the med spa industry, and kind of integrating that way, it's kind of
Mhm,
keeping the flow, because
mhm.
some injections and some procedures, they're months long, but health is every day, all day. So I know that
Oh
kind of
yeah.
keeps people coming back in for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I know everyone's wanting to know because we have a lot of injectors that are very curious, and been waiting for this episode. So let's talk a little bit about AIA, which is the Aesthetic Injector Academy. What kind of gap in the industry did you see that led this creation of this fully accredited online training?
Thank you. I feel like I have created the best product in the history of the world. I feel that way. It's kind of my baby, but back in the day when I was the only med spa, I was the only game in town. There was like one or two, maybe 5, 7 miles away. Now there's like 30 within a 4 mile radius. I'm not kidding. All the plastics and all the derms have gotten into the med spa space because, not everyone wants to go under anesthesia. And there's a lot you can do in our industry with the equipment, but there's not room to learn. It's hard to get into this industry if you're a medical injector, particularly. So if you it used to be if I wanted to, and I needed an injector because I was expanding my Allergan rep, my MERS rep, my Galderma rep, they would send me 4 or 5 resumes of skilled, qualified injectors. And in the last 5, 6 years, it's been, oh, well, everyone's looking for an injector. Good luck. If you know of any, share with me. If you interview someone you don't like them, I'll take them. So it has gotten to a point, not just with me, but with everyone. You have to train your injector. It's hard to find a skilled, qualified injector who's been doing this 5 years or 10, even 2 years. So I've gotten to where I would have to onboard new injectors and teach them from the very basics all the way to the most advanced. And I'm super big on education. There's not enough education. I mean, you can never have too much. But what I found was if you're a medical professional, a nurse practitioner, a PA, or RN, and you want to learn how to inject, there's not an avenue for you. The way it's set up currently is you have to be employed. And then once you have an Allergan account for your employer, you can get training videos, you can attend training workshops. So I thought there's a giant hole, big gap for online, for education in person or in online. So one of the things that I've done is I created an online academy with Aesthetic Injector Academy. So what I learned was there's just a gap on how to learn all about our industry, from neuromodulars, facial anatomy, dermal fillers, uh, different things like Kybella, all the different types of dermal fillers that are out there, biostimulators. If you want to break into our industry, you really need to have that foundational knowledge first before you go spend thousands of dollars on an in-person training. You want the fundamentals. So I basically created like a college curriculum. So if you're a medical student and you want to learn about our industry, Aesthetic Injector Academy is a great place to start. For a minimum investment, you're gaining your CMEs up to 20 continuing education credits. And I not only have the written content, I back it up with some esteemed trainers. I have Olivia Solomon. She's out of Franklin, Tennessee, up in the Nashville area, but she's a worldwide traveler and trainer. And Christina Noggle is another one of my trainers who's down in Florida, and she's outstanding, top 100 Allergan, maybe top 50 now.
Wow.
And so I took the written content and I backed it up with film content so that it's it's informative and it's educational, and it would give anyone a good foundation before they spent thousands of dollars on an in-person training. And all of this is to try to get hired, right? So even if you're injecting now, it's a great way to get your CMEs.
Absolutely. I mean, the aesthetic industry is growing fast and education often kind of lags behind. So, what would you give advice to these injectors that are attempting to like do quick courses or social media for training? I know there's a lot of people on there that kind of do YouTubes and whatnot. How could you kind of break that cycle for them?
I think things like this, like our conversation, is going to let someone know there's an option out there for them that's better than YouTube. Now, there's some great injectors. There's some great educators that are on YouTube or on Instagram that'll help steer you away from the shiny object that you think you want to do, and keep you on the safe route. The best way to do anything is to start with the basics and stay with the basics until you've completely mastered it before you go into off-label things. Um, I mean, look at it. Everyone's receiving off-label treatments, but if you're looking to be the best in the industry and the best injector you can be, you need to learn the fundamentals first, and that's through solid education. And let's be honest, a lot of what you see on social media is not real life, not safe. And maybe those people doing it have been injecting for a decade and they're willing to take the risk. But I think good information would be start with the basics and get it really done.
Absolutely. So I know a lot of med spots have been asking me personally, do you know any good injectors? Do you know anybody that in my area? So this is really cool. Do you help, the people that go through your course find locations that they can work at, or are you having people come to you to train their injectors?
I haven't had in-person training, but I do work with my partners. They're the key to success. Reputationally, if I need a good injector or if I refer someone who's starting out or someone who's looking for employment, I rely on my providers. So our partners, are Allergan, again, MERS, Revance, Galderma, they'll take they'll take my advice and they'll call and ask for references or they'll ask for referrals. So knowing who those people are in the area that you're looking. So if you're in Indiana or if you're in Tennessee or you're in Texas, you want to know who those providers are the manufacturers reps are, because they're the word on the street and they're going to help you get placed.
Absolutely.
Referrals are a really good source, but you gotta kind of find out who those people are. LinkedIn and different avenues you can find out who the reps are.
It's amazing. Yeah, we have a lot of up and coming injectors wanting to break into the aesthetic space. So this is an incredible offer.
Yeah, we need them. I mean, we want
Yeah,
them. Get the training, get the skill set, and get out there. We all need more injectors. We do. We need skilled
absolutely.
injectors everywhere in the country.
Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of med spas, dermatologists, plastic surgeons, and there's not one person that I haven't spoke to that either speaks super highly of their injector, or is just it's making or breaking their practice. It's whether they're just not qualified or the patients aren't really happy or they're doing unsafe practices. So I think this is absolutely essential for the market. And it's your face.
Mhm.
You
And
know, like,
right? It's your safety of your face. Well, I mean, it's important that you have someone very skilled and very respectful of what they're doing. I mean, again, years ago, Botox was like, oh, don't do that. Now it's so popular and the neuromodulators work so well that everyone wants it. They're willing to go anywhere and get it. So choose your providers very carefully.
absolutely. Well, talk a little bit about the trends that are coming into place with injecting.
Okay.
Women and men are not filling their faces as much as they used to. We're enjoying the more natural look these days, which I'm totally here for.
Mhm.
But how has that kind of shifted your education platform?
So for my providers, particularly my injectors, we've gone to more like biostimulators. There's some really good, PRP has always been a great avenue for us. There's now new biostimulators. There's PDGF by Aerie Essence. we're moving into more of a post GLP-1 stage where a lot of skin laxity is occurring. And so I think, modalities, it's important for everyone to have a well-balanced offering in their practice. So we do soft wave, which is a great skin tightening. We do RF microneedlings. We have a lot of different modalities we can address that give you that lifted look that we used to rely heavily on filler to do. Um, and I will say, yes, the trend is waning from the filler perspective, and that's great. I'm all for it. There are some very overfilled celebs that make, you know, I don't think you could get that much filler in most places, but
I know, right?
people are just going, ah. But I do think with this post weight loss, the GLP-1s, the Ozempics, and the semaglutides, or the tirzepatides, there's a lot of skin laxity out there. So there's different ways to maybe shift from dermal fillers, but go back a little bit to what's going to help improve your skin tone and texture and laxity. And that does bring back dermal filler and other modalities.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember my first stints in aesthetics, always watching the injectors and being like, "Oh, what are they doing? What are they going to hit something or something go wrong?" But I think it's just so important, to really be educated. So I think what you're
Mhm.
doing is incredible. How do
Thank you.
you kind of manage, because you're still, with Utopia or Youthtopia?
Yes. Yes.
How are you managing running that and scaling the academy at the same time?
Well, I need some help. I might use your services. I think that reading, the more I know about you, the more I think that we should work together. Um, so when running Youthtopia, and that's why I was looking after 13 years, I've definitely opened a second and or a third location. There's a lot to be said for improving your EBITDA. When private equities out there, just from the business side of the house, there's a lot of PE where they're gobbling up med spas, because they are trending and they are growing. And Wall Street's always looking for a good investment. We've passed on the private equity because I don't think we were ready. I Just to your point, because I spent the last 3 years building Aesthetic Injector Academy, I didn't have the bandwidth to then go do a second or third location, even though I feel like I could do it in my sleep at this point, because I've learned the hard way on so many different avenues. Not that I know everything, but I've learned a lot. So now we're really just I'm really focusing on launching AIA, and then we're considering perhaps working with an MSO group, um, which isn't private equity, but it does take some of the heavy lifting off, um, to allow me to maybe focus on now doing a second location. But ideally, I can just keep growing and growing with AIA. I think anybody who's training an injector, they should consider having them do my coursework first so that it takes the heavy lifting off of them. Um, but yeah, it's a lot. My My husband's retired, and I'm always like, "Well, what's that like?" Find it.
You're like, "Oh, I wonder." Wow.
How's how's golfing in Phoenix?
Well, we've worked with many med spas, especially ones that are wanting to expand to other locations. We've had some great interviews with people that have, been successful in that, and some that have not. So I think it's really important to go ahead and, like you said, the private equity and everything. I think those are great steps along the way, and we are always happy to help any way we can. Being able to juggle both, what's like one piece of advice that you would leave for med spa owners that are really wanting to grow substantially in today's market?
Okay, that's I would say this. If you are a med spa owner, and you're the provider, like I don't, I came from corporate finance, so I don't put a needle, I don't do that. I'm like you, like, "Ah." um, if you're an actual provider and you're running a med spa and you want to expand, you have to step out of that provider space. It's my best advice. Even as a non-provider, I've hired a manager, and that manager has changed my life. She's like a mini me. And she didn't know anything about this industry. So she she does it the way I want her to. Sometimes someone can come into your office and they've been doing it 20 years. You're like, oh, that's exactly what I need. Well, if those 20 years have created bad habits, that's the last thing you need. So if you have the opportunity to have a manager or an assistant manager that can do the daily work, that can organize the meetings, that can you got to do all your analysis on your employees. What are they selling per hour? How much product are they selling? What are your product goals? We have to have quarterly meetings. We have monthly meetings with each provider to keep them tracking so they can be successful. And if you're wanting to expand, you're going to have to like rely on someone else to help you do that. You're going to have to like fork out the bucks and pay for a really good manager in order to take the next step because you have to stay organized. It'd be so hard if I were also the one running all the injectables and trying to expand and grow and manage my estheticians and my front desk. So I highly would lean into someone you can trust and teach them the way you want it done and hold them accountable to that. I think
Absolutely.
you can't expand without the help, right? It takes a village.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're working with people that are wanting to expand, and we're really big on automation. There's
Hmm.
a lot of amazing tools out there these days, especially with the, incoming flux of AI, that can really alleviate a lot of that stress and time. Because we do have a lot of owners that are providers as well. And,
Hmm.
wearing that many hats at the same time can just get crazy.
It can, and
So,
AI is amazing. I do think that, with the CRMs, as you're familiar with, the more processes you can put in place that are automated are going to help take that headache out. You know that it's set, you know that it's scheduled, you know the bulk messaging is going to go out on time and it's going to deliver the message you want. So there's AI's our friend.
yes.
Yeah,
When used correctly. Yes.
currently. Okay, yeah, knock on wood, right?
I know. We're monitoring it, don't worry.
Yeah,
We're making sure it doesn't, at least on our end, go too crazy. So,
yeah, yes.
well, Tracy, thank you so much for sharing your journey and wisdom with us today. I know listeners are going to walk away super inspired with a lot of practical takeaways that they can use into their own practices. And for everybody tuning in, how can they get a hold of you? What are some links? We'll make sure to put them in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much. So I own Youthtopia Med Spa in Alpharetta, Georgia. It's Youth Topia Med Spa and Aesthetic Injector Academy. And of course, my email is tracy@youthtopia.medspa.com. And you can follow us on all the social channels and our websites. And I appreciate you sharing them. And if you'd like to offer a code for 20% off for my academy, there's a code AIA20. So any of my curriculums are 20% off to your listeners. Just use AIA20.
Wonderful. Well, I know a lot of people are going to be jumping on this because they have been waiting for this episode. I have been telling everybody, I'm like, just wait, she's coming. So, for everybody tuning in, thank you so much for being a part of the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any future conversations. And once again, I'm Bethany Gifford, and I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you.